When we talk cultural diversity in children's literature, classism is not typically the first topic that comes to mind for most people. Classism starts with the root word of class. It refers to what used to be called the lower class, middle class, and upper class. However, those terms have been replaced by people who are in poverty, middle class, and affluent. So those are the more typical terms that are used to discuss different social classes. Also, even the term social class has typically been replaced by the term socioeconomic status, which refers to not only the income level, but also the education level of the people who are within that family unit. So, someone with relatively high socioeconomic status is usually an affluent family, whereas somebody with low socioeconomic status is typically considered someone living in poverty. But classism is the most used term in literature, so I will refer to it here, even though, as you just figured out, it's a little outdated. Also, classism refers to the idea of lifestyle differences, so not noticing or not best representing this idea that there can be differences in lifestyle choices that are okay. So with that in mind, most of children's literature is written by people who are within the middle class or affluent class. Very little literature is coming from people who are currently living in poverty. Therefore, there is a very inauthentic view of what poverty is and what it looks like. So with that in mind, let's look at some of the common stereotypes and myths. There are several stereotypes that really come out strongly whenever you have a book that is trying to confront head-on the issues of poverty. The first stereotype I see quite often is ending a book with this beautiful message of we're poor, but we're so happy we have each other that truly we're rich. That is a great message, and books like Stone Soup that have those different proverbial and different myths associated with it, they can be really great books, and they are really great messages that we need to share with our younger generation as well, especially as we think about during Thanksgiving, like going around and talking about what you're thankful for and noticing what you have, kind of the blessings, so to speak, as opposed to focusing on the negative. Those are great attributes to have. However, when a book oversimplifies this idea of poverty to say that all you need is family and completely neglects the fact that there are families who need homes, who need food, who need clothing, who need medical care, and they completely gloss over those needs, it can create stereotypes that families in poverty still have all that they need, which is not always the case. Also, there's a lot of books dealing with poverty that have these suddenly magical, almost magical happy endings. The Secret River is a great example of this. It's a very popular children's book in which a family is very hungry, but thanks to the magical help of somebody in the woods, a young girl within that family is able to find a river overflowing with catfish, so her family eats that evening. This perpetuates the stereotype or idea that families in poverty have magical help and resources that will always save them at the last minute, when that's truly and sadly not the case. Also, there's a lot of books that really attempt to show this idea of giving and service to our community, which again is an excellent theme. I'm not trying to denigrate that as a theme. However, when a book ends with this idea of a middle class or affluent person notices somebody who's in poverty and donates food to them, so then they just feel better at the end of the book and they've done their part, that's not a very positive message overall. Books like The Canyon have this same exact plot, and it's very problematic because it basically says that, well, as long as you donate once or twice, you are off the hook. You no longer have to worry about poverty or fight to end it. Instead, it also just kind of captures this idea of give a man fish, you can eat for a day, instead of addressing the if you teach a man fish, you can eat for a lifetime mentality. So donating food and donations, good thing, but teaching children that's all that can or needs to be done to fight systemic poverty, that's not such a great message to send. So instead, let's look at some books that have a more positive message that's less stereotypical. First, let's change what it means and what it looks like for families who are in poverty. For example, poverty does not mean that the parents do not work. In fact, this book, Night Shift Daddy, shows that often single and multi-parent households have parents who are both working and working multiple jobs, in order to maintain the home and the food. However, we have showing children representations of what it looks like to be working poor or the working poor is a great way to have these conversations. So in this book, a little girl wants her daddy to tuck her in at night, but he has to go for his night shift afterwards. So then she learns how to do the same for him. So it's not covering up the fact that there are many working poor out there. It is showing poverty in a very realistic way. However, it is also not perpetuating any stereotypes. Something Beautiful is another book that I really enjoy because it looks at the community and the neighborhood as a whole, where poverty is very systemic and affecting many different ways within that neighborhood. So this young girl is asked by a teacher to find something beautiful in the community. And this teacher has a bias or a stereotype as she's looking around at the community, as she's looking around at boarded up homes and closed down businesses, thinking, wow, I don't know what these kids are going to come back with. But this little girl was able to show the beauty of her home. And the illustrations show that there's still food insecurity, that there's not access to grocery stores, that there are a lot of issues with unemployment in the community. So it doesn't sugarcoat those, but it still finds beauty within them. So I think it's a very realistic and authentic book to use when introducing children to this idea of poverty. And a third one is, I think this is really relevant as well. A large and growing population have home insecurity, meaning the children do not know where they are going to be that evening. So this is a book about an immigrant girl, and she and her mother from Jamaica do not have a home to go to. And it's difficult for her mother to find a job, so they end up living in a vehicle for a while. So it's a very authentic view of something that many immigrants do experience, and many students and children that we come across may have connections to as well. But it gives, again, an authentic and a realistic view to what some children do have to deal with on a daily basis that will expand the windows and the worldviews of the children that they're working with. Another way to expand their worldview in thinking about what it means to be middle class or affluent is to show the differences globally between lifestyles. So being able to show that what we consider a need or is actually more of a want. So this story, Wangari's Tree of Peace, is a nonfiction book, and it's about a girl who noticed that deforestation was impacting her hometown of Kenya. So she went back to start planting trees and to rebuild the forest that existed there. This shows the differences visually between two different communities and help children really see why their community and their description of what it means to be parts of different social classes is very different or off. This is another one that comes straight from America, another nonfiction book about a strike that happened in Los Angeles. And it was the story of people who were working very hard but still weren't getting the compensation they needed to have access to food and homes the way they needed. So in going on strike, the community was able to really consider what it meant to be in poverty and the fact that many people who have full-time jobs would still not have the funds needed to be able to support themselves and their family. So this again can open up the eyes of a child and open a window so they can see what poverty means and what it looks like, and dispel stereotypes that these people who don't work. And then another book that will help with looking at global differences is this, again, nonfiction book, The Streets Are Free, looking at how children live in another country, and noticing that as the urban sprawl takes over their communities, they no longer get to have areas to play. So they had to really turn to their community in order to get the playground built. So again, it shows children who are reading this book or having this book read to them the differences between the global definitions of what it means to be lower middle and upper class, to be in poverty, middle class, or free. Alright, so those are a couple book examples. I'm also going to provide you with two different YouTube videos that Lisa already here on two other books that I really enjoyed. One has to do with a little boy who wants a certain pair of shoes, but his family simply can't afford it. And the other has to do with another family who is homeless as well. So you can get exposure to just multiple different books that deal with the issues of poverty, but do so in a way that's approachable for children and also authentic to the real life experiences.